Hi guys, Pete here. I just wanted to start my bolt action journey with you all, and here, down here next to the larger window, I've got all sorts of things going on at once. I'm uploading a video in front of me. I've got this here on the go and various bits and bobs. So I've taken the sprues out, or some of the sprues out. I've taken the German side out. Thankfully, for the infantry, they're marked on the actual sprues themselves, if you're ever wondering, because I had no idea. I thought, oh, who's who? You know, he kind of looks sort of German-y or whatever. So there. But I'm going to concentrate on this half track first. And it seems I've got two sprues to do that with. So that's what I'm going to do first. And I've had a look at, started having a look at the mini rule book as I go. Now you'll have to excuse me because this is all a bit, you know, I'm a bit unsure about myself here, so I'm following the instructions which you get on the side of the box in this D-Day Firefight box set. Okay, so that's what I'm looking at. I've had a look, started having a look through the sorry about that, dog's barking there. I started having a look through the rule book, okay, and the first few pages are just basic supplies, what you need. Look, it tells you need a tape measure, which is obvious really, dice and markers. Tells you about the different kind of dice you get in this game, which are the order dice here, and D6s obviously, but put them to one side, we won't be needing those for a while. Then it just explains what the order dice are, that you'll need a bag or a cup or a container or something to put them in so you can draw dice blind without the other, well, without either of you seeing. It tells you you'll need pin markers as well. And turn over, it goes on to the conventions of war, okay, which is the first bit. But I'm going to start cutting out, snipping the bits off this sprue. So I want to get this half track built. Then I've got the worrying task of trying to paint it, because I have no idea what colours they're supposed to be. But I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. Now, let's cut these parts out. It says I need that. I need the tracks. So we'll cut them off as well. This is kind of like an on the bit. I'm not sure whether to. I'm not sure whether to do this as voiceover and concentrate on the video or just chat as I go. It's not so much on the bench, it's like on the other bench. On the makeshift bench. Now let's come off. Right. What else do I need? I need the wheels. Okay. Presuming one there's a spare then. Yeah. Okay, so I need the two wheels that go either side, which should be these. Okay, what else do I need? That sort of crossbar member bit thing. Yeah, that one there. The instructions are not as obvious as, say, Games Workshop, but if you've done any of that, you should be okay. Might be a little bit daunting with a first time model maker though. I'm just having a look, see if I can work out what that piece is. Well, I don't think it's anything on this sprue. Don't think, he says. Yeah, I'm really not sure. I'm just checking this sprue over here. I think it could be that one. I'll leave it on the sprue for now because it's small, just in case. So start cleaning this up a bit here. I'll grab my trusty files. I'll use that one, I think. Got my favourite hobby knife ready, just in case. Right. Just making sure there's no other instructions I need. Right, so I drop stuff. Right. So where were we? Other video is almost uploaded. It's been stuck in the same place for ages. Over time I've had to keep restarting it. It's quite annoying. These nail files are quite good as well for quickness. So bolt action then. Seems to be quite a popular game up and coming, I would say. So I'm hoping to get in on the action of bolt action. In on some of the action of bolt action. Does that make any sense? Oh, I don't know. Right. Okay, so that's that bit done. Let's have a look at this track here. Right, so what does this page say? Measuring distances. When you play bolt action, you will often need to measure distances between units, as well as distance moved by models as they make their way across the battlefield. Well, that's fairly obvious. So we'll essentially, I think it's basically just Warhammer in World War II setting, you know, apart from differing rules. Go on, mould lines go out between these tracks. It's a good job I got these files. Very handy. Nothing worse, I don't think, than mould lines, don't you? Chances are you won't see them anyway. So what else? Distance between models. The distance between two models is always measured between the closest points of their bases. If the models do not have a base, use their torso, hull, gun, carriage, or comparable core portion of the model. Ignore parts of the model that might stick out like gun barrels, bayonets, outstretched arms, radio aerials, etc. Distance between units. Most infantry units are made up of 2 or more models, often 5 or 10. The distance between 2 units is always measured between the bases of the closest models in the units. Follow the same guideline given above for models without a base. Oh, it's just fairly obvious stuff. And here's something which differs to Warhammer. Okay, no measuring before deciding. Players are not allowed to measure distances before making a decision. A player must always declare his intention before measuring. For example, you might say, I'm moving this infantry squad in such and such a direction, or my anti-tank gun is firing at that tank, and then proceed to measure. This means that, just as in reality, players cannot be sure about distances and ranges until they go for it. Sight. The game rules that follow refer to what a man can see, or line of sight. Establishing what an individual trooper may or may not be able to see does require a little necessary judgment on the player's parts, but this will soon become habitual after a few games have been played. To determine what a man can see, lean down and take a look from behind a model to get the soldier's eye view of the battlefield. The torso or head of an enemy model can be seen clearly. We assume that the model can see that enemy. If only a peripheral part of a model can be seen, such as an arm or leg, backpack, or the barrel of a weapon, then we can assume that the enemy cannot be seen because there are just too many obstructions or distractions. Remember, in real life all the troops on the battlefield would be in continuous motion, infantry darting from one position to another, vehicles speeding along, and crews of field guns crouching behind the cover of their gun shields. A real soldier's view would be the briefest of glimpses, very likely with bullets zipping around and shells exploding nearby. Vehicles, artillery pieces, and other bulky items of the equipment are easy to see, being somewhat larger than the average man. Once again, so long as some core part of the vehicle, model, or artillery piece or item of equipment can clearly be seen from the model's eye view, we assume that the individual can see the enemy. If all that can be seen is a bit of wheel or track, radio, aerial, exhaust pipe, the barrel of an artillery piece, or some other extraneous detail, then we can assume the trooper cannot see effectively amongst the din, smoke, and dust of battle. Table boundaries. The game is always played with the boundaries of the area available. Troops are not allowed to move beyond the edges of the table during play, except when this forms part of an outflanking move or objective as described in the game itself. Presumably that will become more obvious as we go through. Of course, this is not strictly realistic, as no such restriction applies in the real world, but it is necessary adaptation to playing games with a limited space. Well, that's fair enough. Then we're going to be moving on to units. Okay, so let's get back to this half track here. Cleaning of the mould lines. Some people don't even paint the undersides of their tanks or tracks because they think, well, you're not going to see it, but I like to, because you might as well. I know it's there. Okay. I think I'm okay with that track. Move on to this one. Yeah, I'll have to start. The sooner I get my bolt action stuff up and running, the better. On a side project, I've got the Ronin one to do, which is kind of cool because it's a different game, but it's only a skirmish game, so it shouldn't take me long, you know, once I get started on it. So maybe I have to dedicate a certain day, so Tuesdays, like it could be bolt action day. I won't always be doing this down here, by the way. videos uploaded. Sometimes it takes ages to upload a video and other times it doesn't. It's very bizarre. Let's get this half track built. That'll be one unit for me then, won't it? So be one down, several to go, as it were. Quite particular when it comes to mould lines, i.e. I don't like them. Yeah, almost there with this, I think. This track. Got to remember they wouldn't be pristine anyway, not in war. So what does it say then? The models in your army must be organised into units prior to the game, a bit like Warhammer. The most common type of unit is an infantry section or squad. This is normally made up of around 5 to 10 men representing soldiers from one of the warring nations. Other units may have fewer models, such as a gun and crew or a machine gun team. Some units comprise a single model, as in the case of a tank or armoured car. Types of units. I just list the basic types. You've got infantry, artillery and vehicles. So infantry, by far the most common type of unit, bolt action as in reality. This category includes all soldiers fighting on foot and armed with man-portable weapons. For our purposes, we shall also refer to units normally mounted on bicycles, motorbikes and even horses as infantry. As in most cases, such troops will fight on foot in our game. Artillery. This includes all large caliber guns and comparable weapons on a carriage or fixed mount. A unit of artillery consists of the gun model itself and a number of crew models to fire and manoeuvre the weapon. Most guns can be manhandled rather slowly or towed by a tractor or similar vehicle. Vehicles. This category includes all combat transport and towing vehicles, from trucks, jeeps and armoured cars to self-propelled guns and tank destroyers and tanks. Vehicle units normally consist of a single vehicle model, including driver and fighting crew where appropriate. So that's pretty cool. Right, now, so how do these fit on then? Oh, I see. In there, like that. Okay. So it goes on like that. Don't mind plastic glue. I love plastic glue. I think plastic glue is my favourite type. Don't mind wood glue, but it doesn't smell as good as plastic glue, I don't think. Anyway, this will be the same sort of deal, but on the other side. That'd go Okay. Well, you can get some insanely detailed models for like dioramas and things, but I mean, for the purpose of this game, these models are really, really well detailed, I think. Cool. First part built. Alright. So moving on. Let's clean these wheels up a bit. We'll talk about formations in the book next. So this is basically getting us used to probably the terminology that it's going to be using throughout the rules. And obviously I've got the army book as well. That will enable me to expand on the armies I've got. I think for bolt action, yes, it's possible, and I looked at just starting off a single or two armies and getting all the bits separately, but I think really, excuse the dogs, but really I think when it's a new game and you haven't played it before and you're not sure about it, a starter set is always a good call, unless you're quite familiar with it anyway, from maybe perhaps playing games with friends or whatever. You feel confident enough to just zip out and get everything you need separately if you think that's better. Right, okay. Now then, that goes in there by the looks of things. So be like that, yeah. Okay. Bit of a little trusty glue. That'll be cool. Presumably these just, yeah, and the wheels. Excuse me if I just talk babble inanely. Go on there. That one's going to go on there. Hey, starting to take shape already, so that's good. Happy with that. Now this other thing. Well, whilst I'm thinking about that, let's clean up some of this. Right. Use this. So it's kind of a good little introduction there, telling you what you're going to need. It's not trying to force you to buy stuff either, which is good. Oh, right. So formation, so a sip of tea then. If a unit consists of more than one model, its members must remain in formation. This means that each time the unit moves the models in, it must form a group with no member separated from the group by more than 1 inch. Now that's different to Warhammer, because in Warhammer the unit coherency is 2 inches, so it's 1 inch in this game. If an individual should become separated from his unit, perhaps because other models have fallen casualty and have been removed, then this must be corrected as soon as possible. 1 inch gap. To help prevent units becoming muddled or positions confused during the battle, units must always end their move more than 1 inch from any other unit, whether friend or foe. In other words, there must be a gap of more than 1 inch between units once a unit has moved. That's fair enough. The exception is that units assaulting an enemy move into contact and fight close combat, as explained later. Well, that's obvious. As well as ending its move more than 1 inch from other units, no models in a unit can move within 1 inch of any enemy unit during the move itself. A distance of more than 1 inch must be maintained. Once again, an exception is made for units assaulting an enemy, as explained later. Important note: the basic game rules are written with units of infantry in mind. This allows us to explain how the rules work, without overcomplicating matters with numerous special rules that apply to tanks, howitzers and such like. The rules for different types of artillery and vehicles are explained separately in their own sections. Right, moving on to the turn. Or we will be. I get this. I'm going to go as far as I can to get this built. Now, where are we? Looking for this tow bar. I think it's a tow bar, and well, I think it's that one. Pretty darn sure it is. It's quite a small piece. Once again, glasses on. Small pieces are hard to do the mould lines on, I find. Quite a challenge. So I think that would be a big challenge on small, like say 6mm. I think that would be it's the other extreme, isn't it? You know. So obviously the detail isn't going to be so much on them, but mould lines are going to look worse, I think. I could be wrong because I haven't done any yet, but I think 6mm models. I think the smaller the model, the worse mould lines look. Well, they look bad anyway, but they just sometimes they can always be explained away as part of the model on various aspects on a larger scale model. But I don't think that's the case on little models. Right, now where does this go then? Okay, I think it goes here, or does it go? Yeah, I think it goes like that. Good job there's a little recess here to put this. I think it goes like that. That's what I think. So that's that stage done. Okay, so that's looking at this piece here, I believe. And also looking at what have we got here. I think it's these. So I'll cut these out. I've got to cut them all out anyway, but I like to do it as I go. So I'm super excited about this game. It's a slightly small. It's not. I wouldn't call it a skirmish game from what I've seen. But I certainly wouldn't call it like an epic game either, with oodles and oodles of models on the battlefield. I think it's somewhere in between, to be truthful. Right, yeah, okay. Ooh, that looks like seats of some description, and I think that's there, I believe. They're not numbered, so I think there's little pegs designed. Right, so I think I've got all the pieces I need for this next stage, so that one there. I've got these bits here. Okay. So just clean up these. I don't even know what these bits are yet. So even if I stop the video for some reason, I'm not gonna skip any bits of this book just so that you know. Where do these go? Like that, is it? I think they kind of go. Sorry, I'm just trying to work out where these bits go here. I think they go like this. Which is tricky. Tricky, oh so tricky. Right. Right. Must be time for another section to read. During each turn, order dice are drawn blind from the dice cup one at a time. When a player's order dice is drawn, he must use it to activate a unit. Once all the dice have been drawn, or once all the units capable of acting on orders have done so, the turn ends. At the end of each turn, the dice are returned to the dice cup ready for the next turn, except for an ambush and down orders, which can alternatively be retained from turn to turn, as explained below. So basically, rather than this game going like your go, my go, your go, my go, where then you move or do everything you need to do with your army, you draw a turn dice, or you draw an activation dice, order dice they call them. You got so many each, one for each unit, and you don't know who's going to draw what from the bag, and I think that's excellent. The chaos of war, I think it comes into its own at that point. I really do. Let's go that way. I'm just trying to work out where these would go. More clean up to do. Yeah, so that's how that works anyways. So say you have 6 units each side, right? So you've got 6 order dice each side. Right, the Germans have 6 order dice, the Americans have 6 order dice. Okay, put them all in a bag. You blindly draw out an order dice, and obviously different colour for each one. So the first one that comes out is Germans. Hey, so he decides to use that on one of his units to move them. So as the Americans are rubbing their hands together, going, right, my go now. But it might not be, you see, because the next dice that could be drawn out could be another German dice, and you know, oh heck, you know, what's going on there? And it really adds a new element to this sort of game, I find. It really does. And that becomes more apparent the more you get into this. Just trying to work this out. So I'm just going to have to go for this because I'm really not convinced as to which way round these go. The picture is not all that clear. So like I say, I'm just going to have to go for it, I think. I think it goes kind of that. They've got these fine nozzle things. You need this. Sometimes, not very often, I wish I had smaller fingers. Right, so I think we're getting somewhere now. He says. Or not. God, that was hard work. Right, there we go. It says that below. Oh, so down a bit. Right, so I think that's how it works. It'd be nice to have better pictures on this. Still, work with what you got. That's what I always say. Yeah, so once again, you're just going to have to go for it. See, I would have thought it would have been better the other way around, but Apparently not. Gotta trust what you think the picture is telling you, haven't you? Sometimes. Oh, heck. That's the piece. There we go. Got it. Yeah, I'm not editing out any of this stuff. If I drop something, I drop it, and that's it. Yeah. Right. Surely it must be time for another bit more of the rules. Right, preparing to play. Before the game begins, the players must each place an appropriate number of order dice in the dice cup. This is one die for every unit in their force, including for units that begin the game in reserve, as described later. For example, if a force of 12 German blue units is facing a force of 16 American green units, I'm presuming that's the colours of the dice, then the cup starts off with 12 blue order dice and 16 green order dice. Should you be using some other tokens other than order dice, then you would have 12 blue tiddlywinks and 16 green tiddlywinks, or blue and green card chits, or whatever. Turn sequence. Bolt action is played in turns. A battle normally lasts for a set of number of turns, as discussed later. In each turn, the players follow the sequence as shown below. For the sake of explanation, from this point we shall assume that players are using order dice rather than chits or other tokens, but the process is basically the same whichever method is employed. Okay. Before I move on to the next bit, I'd better glue this badger in. Just so that okay, so while that's drying. Orders phase. Draw an order dice from the dice cup and hand it to the appropriate player. The player chooses one of his units and gives it an order. Place the order die next to the unit to show that it has received an order. Otherwise, you'd have to keep track of who you've moved, who you've shot, and so on. I imagine in an apocalypse game of Warhammer that could be difficult sometimes. You've got loads and loads of units. Anyway, once a unit has been given an order, it cannot be given another order that turn. If necessary, the player takes an order test to determine if the unit follows the order. The player executes the unit's resolution action, then back to 1. All eligible units have received an order. Once all eligible units have received an order, the order's phase ends. Move to the turn end phase. Turn end phase. Return all order dice to the cup, except for those units wishing to retain an ambush or down order as noted later. Units that are destroyed during the turn lose their order dice. If a destroyed unit has already taken its action, remove the order dice, your order die placed next to it. If a destroyed unit has not already taken its action, remove a die from the dice cup. Other dice lost as a result of units being destroyed are removed from play and placed aside where both players can see them. When units are lost, this therefore reduces the number of dice available for the following turn. See, there's a kind of unique faction to this game. Moving on to the orders, I'm just going to have a look at the seats now, because they're quite small, so just need to do a bit of tidying up here. Incidentally, sometimes I use my hobby knife to remove mould lines and so forth. Other times I use my mould line remover from the Games Workshop. For the majority of stuff, this is truly excellent. Okay. Get some glue in there, get these seats in. Right, and then we're looking to, I would assume, attach that to there. Just going to work out which bits are making contact here. Well, I would assume that was. I'm assuming you're making an assumption there. Seat's being finicky now. Now is not the time to be finicky. So there we are, that's that bit. Okay. Okay. Crikey. I think I'll snip out this bit. Just do a quick test fit, see how that goes on. I think it goes just on top there, like so. Should be good. Yep. So we're gonna clean this up. So right. Okay, so get back to the orders then. When a unit receives its order die, this represents the squad's leader telling his men what to do. Ultimately, of course, this is you, the player, deciding how you want your troops to act that turn. However, if troops are under fire, there is a possibility that the men will disappoint both you and their squad leader and decide all they really want to do is keep their heads down. The choice of orders a player can issue to his units is represented in the 6 faces of the order die as followed. So 1 is fire, fire at the enemy, fire at full effect without moving. 2 advance, move and then fire. 3 run, move at double speed without firing, also used for assaulting. 4 ambush, no move fire but wait for opportunity fire. Presumably that gives you advantages later on. Rally, no move fire but lose d6 pin markers, that's cool. And 6 down, no move fire but gain an extra -1 to be hit. Presumably that will become more apparent later on as well. So just going to clean up this little bit here. Hope it's not going to be one of those builds where I find I should have been painting it instead of building it by now. I think I can sort it out there to a satisfactory standard. Right, so I think that just goes on there like so. So I'm going to do it. Does that touch there? Well, it kind of does. Right, let's get this bit of glue on here. It's actually quite refreshing to build something that's not like Warhammer related. And, I love the fact that I'm building a representation of something that was actually used in military history. I find that fascinating, I really do. I don't know if that's going to come into contact with anything, but glue it just in case. Now, so get that on there. And here we go. So we're starting to look a bit like a sort of half-track vehicle thing now. Right, well, I'm holding that then. So I'll just gives you a little rundown of each of the 6 orders that you can do there. Fire. I know they sound self-explanatory, but might be good to just run through it. So fire. The models in the unit do not move. Instead, they open up with their weapons at their chosen targets at full effect, so that might be quite handy. Some large and bulky weapons can only be fired by units receiving this order, so they require the firer to be stationary. See the rules for shooting on page 21, which I will do later on, or we will do. Advanced. The unit can move and then fire its weapons. The unit's shots will be less accurate, and that's pretty obvious, than if it chooses to remain stationary and fire, and some of its weapons may not be able to fire at all. Hold on just a sec. Pull my wheels off here. Right, sorry. Run. The unit moves at double speed but cannot fire any of its weapons. Ambush. The unit does not move or fire, instead the soldiers take up firing positions and wait for a target to present itself. Obviously you're going to get bonuses if you decide to do that, like being more accurate and so forth. Rally. The unit does not move or fire, instead the troops pause for breath, patch up the wounded, pass ammo around, regroup, ready for the following turn. And it did say about removing pin markers, which is obviously going to be a handy thing. Down. The unit does not move or fire, instead the troops hit the dirt and keep their heads down as far as possible, making maximum use of whatever cover is available. This all sounds pretty good. Pinned. Normally, this isn't an order, this is just saying moving on to pinned now. Normally units do what you order them to do without question. However, if units that find themselves under enemy fire are less reliable, and sometimes they will ignore their orders altogether. This is represented by the rules for pinning. Pinned troops are indicated by markers placed on the tabletop next to or behind the affected troops. Units that have taken a great deal of fire will gain more markers and will become increasingly reluctant to obey their orders. That's good. So I'm thinking I've taken up enough time here in this video doing this, but don't worry, gonna go through all the rules together, but I'm sure you don't want to sit here and see me build this in a slower fashion as I'm doing, so I'm going to stop it here. Then in the next video this will probably be built, but I'll come straight back to pinning where I left off. Okay, so see you next time guys on the next video. Till then, happy gaming.